This high-pressure ridge will cause surging heat like never seen so far in 2024 for a lot of the eastern and central United States as we head towards next week, with an active pattern also setting up simultaneously for areas in the north. In this video, I've got the details not only on the storms and the heat, but all the details you need to know on the pattern ahead and the tropics, so stick around. Thanks so much for taking time out of your week to watch this video. As always, the model maps that I use throughout my videos to predict the weather are from WeatherBell, so if you want to check those same maps out and get a free trial, there is a link right down there in the description. Also, if you're new to my channel and you have not already, make sure to hit that subscribe button if you enjoy this video and want more consistent, accurate, and easy to understand forecast videos in the future. Alright, flipping things over to that mid-level pattern with the European model here. This is going to give us a look at what's going on right above our heads, about 15 to 20,000 feet into the atmosphere as we go throughout the rest of this week and towards next week, setting up where we've got low pressures and high pressures going on, not only closer to the surface, but also in those mid-levels. And what we've got going on here, where I'm circling these yellows and oranges, heading towards the end of this week on Friday, June 14th in the early morning, this is where we've got high pressure setting up. So from parts of California, Nevada, and a lot of the Mountain West, all the way down here into the Central Plains and southeastern United States, this is where temperatures are expected to be a little bit above average at the minimum, some spots well above average, and I'll show you those anomalies later, but we'll also likely have lower thunderstorm chances there than what we're going to be having going on further north, thanks to these blues that you see on up there in parts of Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan. This is where some of the lower centering of a low pressure system will be as we head towards the end of this week. That will have been dragging our thunderstorm chances from parts of the Dakotas, Minnesota, and Wisconsin through around Wednesday into Thursday, all the way through parts of the Midwest, Ohio Valley, towards parts of the Northeast by the time we head towards the Friday to Saturday time frame. So a lot of significant severe weather possible out of that. We'll break that down as well here momentarily. But what you can really see, and this is what's going to bring the heat as we head towards next week, look at this as we head towards our Sunday, June 16th of 2024. In the late day, it doesn't matter what time of day it is, this ridging is going to be the same as we head towards even Monday, towards Tuesday, and maybe even beyond. Those yellows and oranges now centering over the Great Lakes and a lot of the east, some of them even turning a little bit deeper there in parts of Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, and Kentucky. This is where some very anomalous warmth, meaning very unusual warmth for this time of the year, is going to be building up, and it could last around for a while once it gets going. Now for the precipitation pattern overview that I normally start my videos out with. We're going to use the GFS model for it today because I think it does a good job of pinpointing a little bit more precipitation than the European model does, at least on our late Tuesday runs that I've been using here. In this area that I'm circling as we head towards the end of our Wednesday, June 12th of 2024, through the late afternoon into the evening, this is where we're expected to see some pretty robust severe weather get going. So out of parts of eastern, North, and South Dakota, but especially on over here into parts of Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, even into parts of the upper peninsula of Michigan. These are some spots where we'll be watching those storms with damaging winds, some especially large hail with 2 to 3 inches in diameter being possible as well for some of those largest hailstones. Even some tornadoes not out of the question on our Wednesday into early Thursday threats there. Then as we go late Thursday and into our early Friday, this is when we're likely to see a new round. This one's going to spark up probably from parts of the Front Range there in Colorado, some of the Central Plains states like Nebraska and Kansas, all the way on over to the east here where some of these storms could be a little more potent through parts of Missouri, Illinois, and then as well as at least some storms on over there through Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, and all the way on over there to New York. Now the GFS model is definitely a little bit more bullish with some of these storms showing some heavier rain all the way along this boundary. The European model only focuses storms really in parts of Missouri and Illinois, and I think that's going to be a little bit key later because this is probably where we're going to have the best chance for at least some severe thunderstorms spark up late on Thursday. Nonetheless, we'll still see this front lingering around, and both the European and the GFS agree on this feature continuing eastward from parts of Maine, drifting all the way back down there towards parts of West Virginia, as well as the state of Virginia, with some of that more scattered thunderstorm activity as we head towards our late Friday, June 14th. Some of those could be briefly severe, but I think the better chance for some severe weather might try to develop out of this new low pressure area developing in parts of Wyoming and surrounding areas, bringing a lot of thunderstorm activity out of the Rockies and into the northern and central plains as we head towards the late Friday timeframe, at that same time that we have that front sinking around in parts of the northeastern coast of the U.S. Notice parts of Nebraska, northwestern Kansas, that might be where we start to see a little bit of that focus of those storms late Friday and into the overnight hours into early Saturday as well. Then as we head towards late Saturday, we might have to get a little bit of some air mass recovery over this region depending on what lingering storms from Friday night move over the region. But nonetheless, some probably isolated to scattered severe storm coverage will be possible. Once again, notice the trend in the same region as stuff, and what I mean by stuff is systems move over some of that ridging that's going to be further south. Remember, I was showing you that warmer than average air over a lot of the south. That warmer than average air keeping areas like what I just circled further north. So if you live really in Kansas and Missouri further north, again, that's going to be some of those areas where we're going to be watching a little bit more of some of that severe storm coverage and just storm coverage in general as we head once again towards this upcoming weekend as well. Notice some scattered storms possible into parts of the upper Midwest and Great Lakes towards Sunday. The GFS model not too intense on those storms, but look at this even as we head towards our Monday afternoon storms there, but also trying to penetrate the heat dome. And I don't really know if this is going to be as possible as the GFS model indicates. This seems like it is pretty much the flaw of the GFS model in this run, but the European model didn't really show enough precipitation, and that's why I didn't want to use it like I normally do in my pattern overviews. In my next video, we'll definitely know a lot more about what's going to happen on Monday, but definitely just in this whole eastern region, be prepared for some scattered thunderstorms. I really do not think that the GFS model is going to be correct in every single state in the east really seeing some sort of shower and thunderstorm activity on Monday, though. But I could be wrong, so we'll keep an eye on it. Let's go back here and talk a little bit more about this near-term severe weather, though, as we head towards our Thursday, June 13th of 2024 in the early morning. This is the system that's been making its way through the north-central United States as we even go through our Wednesday and supporting that severe threat over parts of the eastern Dakotas into Minnesota and Iowa and Wisconsin surrounding spots on the late Wednesday, early Thursday time frame. You see that pulse of energy. We don't have a trough here. Trough is that dig in the jet stream. We don't have that U-shaped trough going on. Instead, we have this strong flow from west to east across the region, and that's still going to be enough to especially power the damaging wind and hail threat that we'll have there out of those storms. Again, late on Wednesday, June the 12th, into early Thursday, June the 13th. And then as we head towards late Thursday on June the 13th and into our early Friday, June 14th, on the underside of this piece of energy right here, stretching from the Dakotas to parts of Michigan, we'll certainly have to watch some severe weather potential again. The GFS model shows some of that all the way from the Central Plains to the Great Lakes region. I think especially in Missouri and Illinois, that's where we're going to, on the underside of those oranges and yellows that you see where we've got those 60 to 70 knot mid-level winds, I think that's where we're going to focus some of that severe weather then. And then look at what happens even as we head towards the start of next week. Things stay active in the northwest. It's going to cool down in a lot of spots as well as we've got this cool energy riding that jet stream. But out ahead of it here as we head Saturday and into our Sunday, you can see on the underside of these pieces of energy, that's where we normally get the severe weather as I've shown you a moment ago. Look at this, parts of the Dakotas, Nebraska, really just those north-central states really watching out for severe weather beyond this weekend even from there. So we'll keep an eye on that. But for now, we've got near-term severe weather to discuss, and that's what I was showing you just a moment ago. As we head towards our late Wednesday and into our early Thursday, this is that threat on my ONW severe scale that goes from 0 to 7. We've got it all the way on up to a 4 of 7 in some parts of Minnesota. We've got a broad 3 of 7 in some parts of northern Iowa and western Wisconsin and a lot of the state of Minnesota as well. Threats with storms, especially as we head towards the late Wednesday time frame, will be damaging winds, some hail. Some of that could be very large in diameter, and we could even see some supercells posing that threat for a tornado or two, and we could even see a stronger tornado if the pattern sets up right. So we'll keep an eye on that. I'll keep you posted in the community tab if you subscribe to this channel right here. As we head towards our Thursday, June 13th, and into the late day time frame, isolated scattered severe weather appears likely to redevelop here, especially from the Great Lakes back on over to the front range of the Rockies here, where we've got at least a 2 of 7 on the scale. Damaging winds and hail will probably be the main threats, along with maybe an isolated tornado or two on Thursday. Then as we head towards our Friday, it looks like severe weather is going to be most prominent here, coming from Montana all the way back down there to parts of northeastern New Mexico. So we've got a little bit of a system that I was showing you moving out of the Rockies. We could also see a little bit more of a focal pocket for that in the panhandle of Nebraska, where I'm thinking at least a level 2 to 3 of 7 on my ONW severe scale will be likely. By the way, also on Friday, some parts of the northeastern United States getting the possibility for some isolated severe storms. Just because you're not in a color on these graphics, that doesn't mean that you're not seeing severe weather, but it looks like the focal point as we head towards Saturday, and then again on Sunday, we'll probably be into the north central plains, and we'll probably expand these areas as we get closer to the event. Now let's talk temperatures here and really talk about that warm-up that's on the way. First of all, this is what I was talking about earlier in the video when I was showing you the ridges and the troughs, particularly where we've got the high and the low pressure. Look at where the warmth is as we go towards the end of this week. Friday, June 14th of 2024 in the afternoon, the warmest anomalies, the highest temperature anomalies that we're seeing on this map of 5 to 15 degrees above average stretch from parts of Idaho and Montana and a lot of the southwest, all the way on over here towards parts of the southeastern United States. So if you live anywhere in these areas, this is where you're most likely to feel the difference with above average heat as we close out this week, head into the weekend as well, except in the northwest where we're going to see some cooler air begin to fill back on in. But look at this as we head towards our Monday, June 17th of 2024. Warmer than average. Yep, that's going to fill in for even more areas, and especially the eastern half of the country. Really from the Central Plains into the Midwest, into the Great Lakes, especially look at that where we're 10 to 15 degrees above average there. Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania, New York, West Virginia, Virginia, all the way back down into the Carolinas. It's going to be pretty notable heading into the upcoming weekend and into the early part of next week. The GFS model doesn't indicate that it will be this warm, or at least not as much as the European model does, but we're going to go with the European so that you're prepared just in case, because this is the most likely scenario as of right now. The European model doing a better job showing temperature anomalies than what I thought it was doing with precipitation earlier. By the way, be prepared because this heat could last all the way through the middle to the back half of next week. But let's go day by day with our temperature tracking here in the daily high temperatures from Wednesday, June 12th, all the way to Monday of next week. Starting here with our Wednesday, Look at this, from parts of California all the way on over there to the Central Plains. This is where it's going to be the hottest. We'll notice that ridge kind of shifting out of parts of the west and into some of the central and southern zones as we head towards the very end of the week, like I mentioned earlier. Look at this, the Great Lakes, the north central United States. It's still pretty hot for our Wednesday, all things considered, with mid and upper 80s, but look at this. It's definitely hotter down here in the southeast where we've got upper 80s, some low to mid 90s, as well as back in those areas I had circled a minute ago where we've got plenty of those 90s and even triple digits to go around. The only exception to the heat is one in the Pacific Northwest where I didn't circle, but also over here where I did circle in parts of Pennsylvania, New York, all the way on over there to Maine. Here we go towards our Thursday, June 13th of 2024. If you're south of this line, you're at least above 80 degrees, to say the least, but in many cases, you're above 90. And some of these spots here in Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, ahead of our potential severe weather we could see later in the day, at least some upper 80s and some low 90s at the minimum there. We've got some triple-digit heat back here in western Kansas, western parts of Oklahoma, western Texas, all the way down there along the Mexico border towards parts of southeast California. Also really heating on up here in parts of Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, the Carolinas. We've got 90s on Thursday, but look at how that builds as we go towards our Friday. And this is when that ridging really starts to expand into more central and southern zones. So while we're checking off nice upper 70s and low 80s up here from parts of the Dakotas all the way to Maine, where it won't be quite as enjoyable because of some of the precipitation in some of those zones, look at what we've got going on down here in parts of Arkansas, Louisiana, all the way on over there towards Virginia and North Carolina. You see boxes on screen. That means that there's potential for a record high to be broken there because it's going to be in the mid to upper 90s over this entire region. Atlanta near 96, Charlotte near 95, all the way to Washington, D.C. in the 90s. Same goes back on over into Texas and the Southern Plains. That's just where it's been hotter for a while, so that's why I'm not mentioning it as much. Still checking off the 90-plus degree boxes in a lot of the South on Saturday. Checking off the 75-ish degree boxes further north and east. Here we go towards Sunday, and this is when you're going to notice it begin to expand back to the north here. And this could be pretty permanent, at least for at least a 3 to 4-plus day time frame here as we head towards next week. The first line I just drew is the 80-degree line. If you're south of that, you're above 80 degrees in general. The second line was 90-plus. Yep, Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, parts of Kentucky, 90-plus. In fact, some spots near 95 if you're in St. Louis, Missouri, all the way on up there to Chicago, Illinois. Yep, I just circled the 100-degree, perfect triple-digit right on the money there. That is possible in Nashville on Sunday in Tennessee. Wherever you are, you want to make sure you're drinking plenty of water with this heat because this is very dangerous for a lot of communities here. South of this line, that's where it's going to be the hottest as we head towards our Monday, June 17th of 2024. This is when it's going to begin to focus more on the Ohio Valley for that anomalous heat. This is when it could be 10, 15, 20 degrees above normal for this time of the year. All of Illinois in the 90s, all of Indiana, a lot of Ohio into the mid to upper 90s. We could see Cleveland, Akron, Toledo, all these spots get well into the 90s on our Monday. Now, back here in the southeastern United States, it's going to be a little bit of a break, at least according to the National Digital Forecast database that we're looking at, with upper 80s and low 90s, but that is not much of a reprieve. You still want to make sure in all these areas you're drinking plenty of water. Think of neighbors who might not have air conditioning. If you have elderly neighbors, people with dogs, pets, and whatever. This is a concern for anybody doing anything outside or who does not have air conditioning, so consider that. This pattern continuing to last into the 6 to 10 day range. Forecasters at the Climate Prediction Center saying from June 17th to June 21st, warmer than average for the east, cooler than average for just the northwest. And look where the precipitation also stays above average. We could enter some drought in some parts of the east without much precip here. The only greens I'm seeing on this map indicating some rain back on off towards the northwest and down along the Gulf Coast. And speaking of the Gulf Coast and the southeast and the tropics, let's talk 2 minutes of tropics here with the first real disturbance of 2024 actually sitting in the Gulf of Mexico, set to head off the southeast coast of the United States in the next couple of days. This is Invest 90L, your first real deal tropical invest, an area of interest is what that means here from the National Hurricane Center of 2024. Right on schedule and in the correct area here. Things normally move out of the Gulf of Mexico, head towards the southeast coast. That's exactly what this is going to do. It has a 20% chance of development once it gets past Florida. So off the Carolina coastline, that's where we could see this really develop. But we're still worried about rainfall for Florida because look at this. I'm not even stopping this graphic until we head to the very end of our Saturday because that's when this rain is finally going to let up. All the way from when I filmed this video late Tuesday through Saturday. Very heavy rain over Florida, and this will cause some flooding. Now, we're in a deficit for rainfall, and we need some in a lot of this state. But look at this. 4 to 6 inches of rain in some local spots closer to Fort Myers, Cape Coral, some of these surrounding areas, all the way just from when I filmed this video through the next 36 hours to our early Thursday, June 13th morning. That's enough to cause some minor to even moderate flooding in some cases, and this is only going to continue to build up in the rainfall category through the end of the week and through the middle of the weekend. Look at this. This is through our Sunday, June 16th in the early morning here. If you're south of this area I'm circling, that's where you're going to be in the highest rain, but even where I do have this area circled, Orlando's some theme park spots there, Tampa, 2 to 4 inches of rain, locally higher spots as well. Tampa all the way down here to Miami, that's really going to be the dividing line for where the heaviest rain is, but it's going to be in that southwest coast, again in Fort Myers, Cape Coral, Sarasota, even as well as some of these surrounding spots down to the Keys. Heaviest rainfall totals here, some of these bluish colors, that's where we could get near a foot of rainfall by the middle of the weekend. That is definitely a big concern there. And look at what the future infrared satellite's showing here with the European model. This is just showing you where we could see some development out of this system. Notice how by the time we head towards our middle of this weekend, while there's still rain stretching all the way back to Florida, we've got whatever's left of the center of this low pressure system heading on off towards parts of eastern Canada, and really it's just going to be weakening and not really anything tropical at that point. Subscribe for more weather-related and tropical updates right here on the One Nation Weather channel. They're consistent, accurate, and easy to understand, hopefully. If not, leave some feedback below telling me what you did not like about this forecast. That's it for this one. Have a blessed day, everyone.
One Nation Weather.